congratulations to the federal government. They found the leaker.
Hey.
And very impressive 21-year-old member of the Massachusetts Air National Guard. Nothing against members, by the way, who volunteer to serve in the Massachusetts Air National Guard. But you'd think this 21-year-old had the top, highest level of security clearance and was obviously the one photographing these documents. Oh, we still don't know if any were altered by him or anything like that, or who was paying him potentially to do this. Some reports are that, it was, again, he basically like joined the military to do something like this. I mean, he'd only been in since he was 19. So enlisted when he was 19. By 21, has top level security clearance, which brings up a lot of questions that I'm going to have for Rick Rinnell later on in the broadcast. And then, of course, he was leaking these documents using logo as like a video. What is that?
Yeah,
place?
he was using Discord to post.
Explain Discord.
Okay, maybe I may be too old to explain Discord.
It's a video. It's a discussion board on video games, basically.
Yeah, I mean, you can have a Discord. It's it's not dissimilar to like a Reddit kind of, right?
Okay.
Would be the best way to put it. I do like his name on it was Jack the Dripper, which is kind of hilarious. Jack the Dripper. But if you see a picture of him, it is wild. This is what was going on. He was a leader of an anti-government chat room, if you will, is what they're calling it on the Daily Mail. I think they also don't know how to figure out how to describe this, as we all sound like old people trying to figure out, on Discord. It's like hearing, during the Taibbi trials, them trying to figure out what Substack was and acting like it was some sort of like, right-wing extremist website. It was like, no, it's just a way you can pay for someone's content easily. It is what it is, but I think it's pretty interesting to see that this is who this leaker was. And pretty shocking. I'm looking through the pictures right now. You're right. The fact that this was someone who was so young, who had the access to this and was able to do it consecutively for months, right? I mean, they were putting out content for over and over and over.
Yeah, I mean, so they've been arrested. What's interesting is that the initial analysis
in January, so 4.5 months.
Yeah, the initial analysis is that I thought it would even be more serious. It looks like they're talking about like 10 years in prison would be the max. Now, I don't know if that's the law that would also include the Uniform Code of Military Conduct, which I think could even have stricter penalties on that. Maybe that's under a regular kind of federal.
Because they're saying this is really only second to WikiLeaks in terms of the actual documents,
the size.
The size of the amount of documents leaked, and the confidentiality, the top secret nature of these. So you're talking about Julian Assange, that whole team, and then now you have this.
Yeah, so he came from a military family. Jack Teixeira was mobilized for federal active duty last fall. He was stationed at Otis Air National Guard Base in Massachusetts and detailed to an Air Force intelligence unit. Again, he worked as an IT specialist. This is why I don't understand why he needed top level, even though he worked in Intel, why he needed the highest level of security clearance.
Did he have the security clearance, or was he just have access to it? See, I think that's also the difference too. If you're in IT, he had the clearance.
You have to have the clearance. But his IT job was communications networks. So you think, does that person who just sets up the networks need to be able to see these paper documents?
Yeah, I don't really know how all
his
of
job
that
is technical,
works.
not.
That's what I was saying. Like, I more understood if he had access to it, but didn't necessarily have the classification.
Oh,
the fact that he had the classification.
Yeah, he had legal access to review these documents.
Yeah.
Of course, he did not have the legal ability to share them with the public. And when they were shared, I mean, obviously this damages America. It also can put people at risk. I haven't seen a lot of it directly how it might put people at risk, but it certainly can. I mean, it had some information that is kind of outdated now.
What were sort of the big ticket leaks? Probably we should go through it and find out what they were.
China had agreed to send weapons to Russia in Ukraine, but they were going to send them undercover. We don't know that ever actually occurred, but that was in there that that Russians were claiming that.
So a lot of the things
another
you saw
one was
in the news the
Putin
last
had cancer, and the Russian generals for Putin, when he had his next chemo treatment, they were talking about back in March. They were going to try to throw the war and basically end the conflict. That to me is a full miss. Even if that was someone saying what they heard
in a document,
makes no sense because unfortunately, I know many of the people on this broadcast have probably been through that chemo experience or know a loved one who knows that if you are a world leader, you're not incapacitated because of that. So it's not like it's not like you're under anesthesia or out of it for 3 or 4 days to receive chemo. So someone like Putin, who could receive that wherever he so chooses, would not lose control over. I don't think they'd be able to pull that kind of move
for a day.
It might make him weak.
Yeah.
And now there's even question about whether or not any of those reports were right.
Yeah.
So it was intelligence that was worth reading, basically, is what they say. It was none of it so far was intel that they had like full belief that it was correct.
So that may be why the sentence would be lower than expected. But it was top secret.
No, it wouldn't be lower because of that. It's just. I guess that's the initial charge. Some of this, too, does forget that the military has its own legal system and is much more strict and has even more severe penalties for actions like this when you take that oath and put the uniform on. It's different. It's different than like a government contractor like Snowden was.
Yeah, it's interesting. Well, I mean, the fact that we were able to get an answer is actually pretty fascinating.
Yeah, what was interesting was he didn't have the plan to leave, to try to get out.
To leave the country or leave the...
Yeah, he started doing this, and I mean, they picked him up at home. I think he had barely any knowledge that they were coming for him. It was like he was reading a book on his front porch when they came to arrest him.
I mean, at least it's an interesting way.
What you want to know next, obviously, is...
Well, you want to know who has access to these documents. I think that's important,
we'll talk to that with Rick.
We'll talk to that.
It must be, when you add the Five Eyes countries all together... These are countries we share this kind of information with. Some of this was for them. So you added different countries and all of the people there that have access to it. Does any of this actually stay classified? I mean, I'm not saying it ends up on a chat board.
But if it ends up on if it's on a digital cloud.
But is it somewhere?
Probably.
For people who really want to access it, can access it, whether they're illegally accessing or not. I'm putting that aside because I'm saying like for a foreign government who really wants to know what documents we're putting out. And do we need to rethink that whole system of how we utilize classified information, but also how we store it and how we share it? Because if a 21-year-old who joined just a year and a half ago, an Air National Guard unit, has access to our top secret information, well, God, imagine how many people in our armed forces do. And
that to me is one of the most surprising parts of this.
And there's a lot of issues with that because sometimes people get in extreme financial difficulties, and those countries are always looking for people like that. Yep. They're looking for people who have turned, who maybe are upset at what they're hearing about what their country is doing, so they look for people like that. I mean, it would appear to me that this would not be something you did for like a $20,000 payment from Russia. Put yourself in this kind of jeopardy.
No, there's got to be a reason, unless you're just a sociopath.
The other reason would be that you were someone who was just anti-American, and you had planned this all along, this path to getting this information to try and be a Snowden or an Assange type figure.
That's what I mean. You want this to be your moment.